Hello, thank you for watching my channel today. My name is Sarah and my channel is called Your True Self. Today I am going to talk about the books that I read in the month of April, and I have, like, down here on the floor where you can't see, there's quite a lot of books because I have been watching Tidying Up with Marie Kondo on Netflix, and I have read the life-changing magic of tidying up, and I really loved it. And there's some stuff that I adopted straight away from the book when I read it, like how I fold the stuff in my drawers, and that kind of stuff. And I've been watching that program, and I think because you can, like, visually see it, it's really, like, even more inspiring. So I've gone through so far the lounge, the playroom, most of my daughter's bedroom, most of my son's bedroom, and we've done those, and then I'm now trying to do my books, and it's really hard because I've managed to get rid of, like, quite a few books. When I say quite a few, I'm talking about, like, maybe 20, but I just, every month I have, like, an in and out sort of little chart in my bullet journal, how many books I read, how many books I hauled, and the number's just not going, it's like a fraction below 400 on my TBR, and I just feel like that's too much. And I've got room for them, so it's not like a space issue, it's just that I just feel like it's too many things. And there's definitely some books that I kind of look at every time on my shelf and think, oh, I don't want to read that. So then why is it on my shelf? So I'm just trying to be really honest, and the hard thing is the ones which I think, I'm not sure, and Marie would say that means no because it's not sparking joy. But what I might do is, if I can get the chance time-wise to do it, I might do like try a chapter unhaul, so like choose some of the books that I'm not really sure about because they're like by an author I've never read before or something, and then try the chapter, and if I get into it, fine. If I don't, then I'll give it away. So anyway, so that was a long intro. So the books that I've got on my lap, so I've got 3 physical books and 2 library books which have gone back, and an Audible to talk about. So I'll talk about the 3 physical books. So I started off by choosing The Colours of the Rainbow on the spines for my TBR for last month, and I only actually read, I think I had 7 or 8 in my pile.
More like I picked the rainbow book.
Sorry, I've been corrected. Faye picked the rainbow book. And so I've read 3 and a half, and I finished the 4th one this month, but one of them took me ages. So the first one I read was Lie With Me by Phillipe Besson, translated by Molly Ringwald. This was for the red spine. So I've had this for a while, and this is a beautiful story of, now can I remember the characters' names? Phillipe and Thomas. So Phillipe is an author, so I'm guessing this is kind of an autobiographical fictional version. But Phillipe is in a hotel lobby, and he's a grown man, and he sees a young man in his kind of late teens, early 20s walk past, and he runs after him because he thinks it's the guy that he was in love with at school, but he realizes it can't be because they'd be the same age, and this guy's a lot younger. So it starts like that, and then it cuts and goes back to the past, and it talks about Phillipe and Thomas, or Thomas, and their love story through school. And it has definitely been compared to Call Me By Your Name, and I can see why. This one I just found, like, wonderful. It was so beautifully written, and it really made you just ache with sadness, but in a kind of a good way, in the way that it evokes the emotions that the author was trying to evoke, and it just makes your heart ache. But it's only very short. It's only like 150 pages. I think I read it in 2 sittings. I was reading it like when we had some really nice weather in April for like 2 days or something, and I was reading it out in the garden, and it was really, really good. So I'd highly recommend that, especially if you like Call Me By Your Name. Then I read one which wasn't very good, and it was A Place Called Here by Cecilia Ahern. So I was given a lot of Cecilia Ahern books, and when I was younger I thought I really quite liked them, but actually when I looked back on my well, when I look back on my Goodreads, I haven't ever given them very many stars. So what I've done is, after I read this, this was like a 2-star for me. I've got the other 2 Cecilia Aherns off my TBR and put them in my giveaway pile, because I just don't think that I'm not the right reader for them anymore. So this is about a girl called Sandy Short, and one of her classmates goes missing when they're at school, and she becomes obsessed with things that go missing. So when you just can't find a sock, or you can't find a pen, or things that you just turn the house upside down, you just can't find them, and you think, well, where did they go? She becomes obsessed with this idea, and so this one thing really annoyed me. There's a therapist at school who sees her about this, and the therapist, they interchangeably use the terms counsellor and psychiatrist, which is really annoying, because counsellors and psychiatrists aren't the same role, but they use them interchangeably in this context, which I just think is something that's an easy thing to correct. But anyhow, the thing that nobody has a problem with at all is that she starts this counsellor is like a man in his 30s, and she's like about 16, and they're like flirting with each other, and then they get into a relationship, and never is that ever brought up in the book that that's a breach of trust, abuse of power, completely unprofessional and strike-offable. Nobody brings that up at any point in the whole story, which I find like completely bizarre. And then anyway, one day Sandy's just like walking, and she goes down a path and then ends up in this place called Here, where it turns out this is the place where all the missing people and all the missing things go. And it's just like quite pants. It's just it's not interesting. It's not believable. Not that books always have to be believable. Obviously you can have magical realism, but it's just not done in a good way, and it's just frustrating at the end as well. So I didn't like this. Yes, and it's why did I finish it, you may ask? Well, it's actually a very easy read. It's got quite big writing, and I kind of wanted to know what the resolution was going to be, but it wasn't satisfying. So yeah, didn't like it very much, and have given away the rest of my Cecilia Ahern. And then the last physical book. This is why I had a bit of a slow reading month, because this was a great book, but it was a very, very slow read. This is one that I got from Secondhand Bookshop, and it's called A Last Wild Place by Mike Tomkies, who is a nature writer, and he died about 5 years ago, I think. And so this book is about, it's very battered. It's got a lovely little inscription in the front from Christmas 1989 for whoever bought this book for her aunt and uncle, which is really sweet. And this is where he goes and spends years in the remote northwest of Scotland, in a place that's so remote nobody's lived there for since I think it's 1912. And he has to row for about 6 or 8 miles to get to his car, to then drive quite a long drive just to get to the nearest shop. So it's kind of like about an 8-hour trip for him to go and get any kind of groceries or get his post or anything. And he's a writer, so he's basically studying the wildlife where he lives. So there's like wild cats, there's lots of different types of birds, there's lots of deer, there's like butterflies, lots of things that eagles, buzzards that he's studying, and it's basically his observations of like where are we? So he's got the bird table, the loch in each of the seasons, the woodlands in each of the seasons, and the mountains in each of the seasons, and it's his sort of observations and things of that time. It's also got some photos. So it's just got like different photos in as well. It's very small writing, and there's no speech in the whole book, so it's very each page is completely dense. It took me kind of like 2.5 minutes to read each page, so it took me a really long time to read this, but I've very much enjoyed it. I love nature writing. I always find that I learn interesting stuff, and not only that, but it makes me kind of wonder at nature all the time, like just how magical it is, how diverse it is, how if we leave it alone it will recover, and it will everything's just so perfectly attuned to each other, and I just think it's amazing. And just learning about how clever just things, different species of birds are, and it's just amazing. So yeah, I really, really love this one. Then the two library books I read were both from the women's prize list. So the first one was Piranesi by Suzanna Clarke. So Piranesi has been getting a lot of hype, as people on Goodreads have said, this is the best book I've read in the last 5 years, stuff like that. And I definitely enjoyed Piranesi. I gave it 4 stars, but for me it did not blow me away like it has with other people. So it's about a guy called Piranesi who is living in this vast kind of labyrinth almost of rooms, and each room has different statues in, and it is extremely imaginative in that the statues are described beautifully in each room. And once or twice a week he meets up with the other, who's the only other the only other person who lives there, and he trusts the other, but I kind of, you can tell as the reader that other doesn't seem particularly trustworthy. And he keeps these diaries of, he logs all the rooms, the statues, the tides, what he does each day, how he catches food and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of just keeps going. And then there's the other tells him about this other person who's really untrustworthy, and he mustn't trust him if he ever comes across them. And then he starts to find diaries that he's written, but without any memory of writing those diaries, of things that happened, and he's like, what are these? And I don't remember writing these. And then it all kind of it's hard to describe without any spoilers, but it all kind of goes from there. I thought that it was a greatly imagined book, and I wanted to know what was going to happen, and I was drawn in, and I really enjoyed reading it. But it wasn't like a book of the year for me. It was just a really good read. So I'm not as enamoured as the other people that I've heard, but I'm not by any means dissing the book or saying I didn't like it, because I did. What I would say, which might be an unfair comparison, this reminded me of The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, but I much preferred The Starless Sea. That was much more fleshed out. And yeah, I preferred that more. But anyhow, so that was the first one. Then I also read Transcendent Kingdom by Gyasi. So really enjoyed this one. So the protagonist is called Gifty. She is studying for a PhD in neuroscience, and the one that I didn't enjoy reading was that she is looking at addiction, and she is using mice, doing experiments on mice to look at addiction and at what makes some people addicts and others not. And we slowly unravel that the reason she's so interested in addiction is that her brother Nana was given some painkillers for an ankle injury, and he then became dependent on opiates. So that's one part of the story. And it also talks about, so her parents were from Ghana, and her brother Nana was born in Ghana as well, and they're now in Alabama, or they grew up in Alabama, or the children grew up in Alabama, and the dad doesn't really want to stay in the United States. It was the mum's idea really to come to the States, so he goes back to Ghana, and the mum struggles with depression, and she doesn't really believe in depression, and she doesn't believe in medication for depression, and she believes more in the power of prayer. And so she's really struggling with deep depression where she doesn't get out of bed for a long time. So there's that aspect of it as well, and it's basically the story of Gifty and her work and her family and their culture. And it's really another big focus, I don't know how I forgot to mention this, another big focus is the the juncture between science and religion. So Gifty's been brought up in a very like Christian religious household, and she always went to church and she like read the Bible and stuff, and she still she's questioning her faith quite a bit, but she still believes in God. And when she talks about God in the lab, like the other people in the lab think it's quite funny, and they're like, how can you be a scientist if you believe in God and stuff like that? And so there's quite a lot of like discussion of her kind of how she feels pulled between two different poles, and she wants to have both of them, and it's the battle internally between can she have both. So that's really interesting as well. So I really enjoyed this book. That was a 4-star book for me as well. Definitely would recommend. And then the last book was the audiobook which I finished, which I have spoken about before briefly, and that was the Midlife Library by Matt Haig. I absolutely loved this. So this is about Nora Seed, and the beginning of the book, it's like a countdown to when she tries to kill herself, and she takes an overdose and she wakes up in a place called the Midnight Library. And the Midnight Library has her old school librarian who she really liked with her, and there's like thousands of books, and her librarian basically says to her, all of these books are different versions of your lives if you'd made, depending on what choices you've made in your life, and you can basically open one, start reading it, and you'll then start living that life. But if you love it enough, you can carry on living that life, you can stay in that life. And if you're disappointed by it, you'll end up back at the library. And so I think that's just a cool concept. And there's this book of regrets that she has as well, which is really heavy. And as she goes through the different life choices she could have made, the regrets start getting lighter, because she realises she always regretted that she never went to Australia with her best friend or whatever. But then when she actually gets the chance to do that, she realises that if she'd done that, something else would have happened, and maybe that wasn't the best thing. So actually she's quite glad that she didn't go to Australia, and that kind of thing. And it's really fascinating, like the different lives that she leads, and how she just kind of appears in this life and she doesn't know where her work is, she doesn't know who her partner is necessarily, she doesn't know like what she's supposed to be doing or where she lives, and how she kind of has to get used to all of that stuff. And everyone's like, you okay, you're acting really weird, and she's like, oh yeah I'm fine, I'm just tired, and just stuff like that. So it's really good, and the end I really enjoyed as well. And I just thought such a fascinating concept for a book, and I really want to read more Matt Haig. I've got How to Stop Time on my TBR, so I'm going to read that soon. So yeah, so that was the last book that I read in April. So yeah, 6 in total. So tell me about what you've been reading. Tell me if you've read any of those books, and if you have, what your thoughts were. Tell me how you unhaul books as well, because I'm also interested for any tips people have about unhauling. And yes, I will be back with another video next week. I hope you'll have a lovely week, and I'll speak to you soon.